the SPRTER podcast. My name is Thilo Kunkel. I'm the founder of the SPRTER app, and I'm very excited to be speaking to Stephen Miller today, who has dominated the field of the Paralympics for almost over 2 decades by now. He is a Paralympian, 6 times Paralympian, 3 times Paralympic Champion, and world record holder from 1997 to 2008. This is just the highlights, but there is a lot more in terms of his achievements that we are excited to be talking to. He's also a member of the Order of the British Empire from the 2016 New Year's honorary for services of a sport. And we're very excited to have him as part of our podcast. Thanks for joining and welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, it's really good to be here. Thanks.
I also want to mention his SPRTER profile on the SPRTER app, where Stephen is providing insights into his training, offers personal Zoom calls, and there's a lot of options to be engaging with him on a more deeper level and really connect with him. So check out his SPRTER profile on the app and the experience store he has set up there. Now, walk me back. How did it all start? Where did your love and passion for sport start?
Yeah, I was very young. I think my parents, from a young age, my parents encouraged me to be active, to to get involved in sports, and yeah, I think as long as I can remember, I've always loved taking part in sport and watching sports. So, I went to my first football game at the age of 5, but yeah, about 5 years old. So, yeah, I've always been very active and into sport. Um, when I was at school, I loved to take part, I loved to compete, and just be physically active. Um, and yeah, I think it's something that's now just a part of who I am, part of my life.
It's really, we see that a lot with parents having that impact on their children, and obviously physical activity is very important when starting out as a kid. You just mentioned playing football, watching football. I know you're part of you're in Newcastle, right? So
Yeah,
is Newcastle, is that your team as well that you supported?
yeah, I'm Newcastle United through and through. So I've been a big supporter of Newcastle United. It's my home city, my hometown, and football is something that most people are very passionate about in my area, and I grew up watching football and playing football, so yeah, it's one of my big passions in life. So yeah, I'm very involved with the Cousin United, and yeah, I'm part of a group called the Cousin United, the Civil Supporters Association, and we work with the club to make sure um, disabled people can get access to the ground and get access to watching football and watching Newcastle United.
And that's really exciting to hear that how you are impacting those others to get involved with it. And I know Kevin Keegan wrote the foreword of your book, so those connections I can see that when you say you're very involved. Some people say they're involved in football, but others are like really like what you just talking about, as in Keegan, like an icon of the game, writing a forward for your book. That shows a lot about that involvement and how other people also see your involvement and what it means to them. What does it mean to you, as in part of your You've also the founder of a charity, right? Where you are Smile Through Sport that you founded, where you're really active in contributing to the community and giving back and leading, helping people there. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's always been really important to me to give something back and to try and help things to get better, help things to improve and move forward. I think I've been very lucky in my life that I've had some great opportunities to take part in sport and be active, and it's really helped me in my life. Um, and I've seen the benefits of taking part in sport over a long period of time. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, to help other people get the opportunities to do that. And whether you're disabled or able bodied, it's really important that we can stay active and look after our bodies and our minds, because we only get one body and one mind. So it's really important that we can take care of it. And then being active is a big part of that. And there are quite a few barriers to gain access to sport. So it's just something that we try and do. We try and break down those barriers and try and make it as easy as possible for people to experience sport and to be active with other people and get the benefits that come from doing that. So it's been really great to get involved in this kind of thing. It's not easy to do. It's a lot of hard work to do this, but it's really important to me.
It's that's exciting to hear about, people actually making a difference, and someone of your status who has been in, call it, the game for such a long period of time, uh, giving back and leading by example, by the charity, and by telling others, or giving, or basically leading through your experience, as in you've competed at such a high level for like since 1997, and probably before
Yeah,
that, right? So
yeah.
um what is the what is the change that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 decades in, I'd say, in the Paralympics, in the awareness around athletics for people with a disability?
I think the biggest difference is the media coverage. So there's a lot more media coverage of the Paralympics, and with that comes a bigger audience and a greater understanding of what the Paralympics is, and how competitive it is and how elite the athletes are. And that's something that's been really great to see in the last few years, because it wasn't always the case. There was a bit of a, there used to be a bit of stigma around the Paralympics being like a grassroots event where people just take part for fun, and it's quite easy to win a medal. But I think getting more exposure to a bigger audience has really helped to to open up the Paralympics to a new audience around the world, and create some big profiles and some big role models that other disabled people can look up to, and that's really important. So I think we need to continue in this way, and yeah, it's really about showcasing the the great performances in competition um, at the Paralympics, and that can really help to inspire a lot of people. And I think what people know about the Paralympics is, yeah, that real, it's got a real feel good factor to it, you know. It's like, yeah, all the athletes have a great story to tell, you know, about overcoming adversity. Um, and that's really great. And yeah, I think yeah, over the years we've seen that development in how we can um yeah combine the two together and create a really great event that can capture the imagination of a lot of people.
And you mentioned quite a few things here that I want to touch on to. One aspect is the role of the media and how the media is amplifying and helping the event to grow and to provide additional exposure. Where do you see the role of commercial brands in supporting Paralympians, in supporting people with a disability?
Yeah, it's really important. I think it's becoming more important as athletes become professional and rely on their sport as an income, you know, and yeah, it's always been yeah quite difficult for Paralympic athletes, for disabled athletes to get that commercial sponsorship. Um, so yeah, I think it's important that we can get brands involved in Paralympic sport. I think yeah, there's a lot of benefits to doing that. I think there is a big opportunity for brands to get involved in Paralympic sport and make that connection to all the great, you know, yeah, all the great messages that come out of the Paralympics about overcoming adversity, you know, and taking on challenges and sportsmanship, like yeah, that real human endeavor that is part of the Paralympic movement. So I think it was a great opportunity to do that.
I completely agree in terms of overcoming adversity. Now, you yourself, you were born with cerebral palsy, and obviously, it's not only that you had to overcome that. You basically started out with that, so you have gotten involved with sport with that disadvantage, with that disability. But you still had a lot of success in the Paralympics and competing. Yet in 2012, there you also struggled with well, I remember reading about your hip issues. So how did you overcome that almost on more of a low point? I'm sure that someone who's going into the games with your pedigree, you expected a different result, but then how did you overcome that to motivate yourself to come back to the 2016 silver medal then? That must have been quite difficult and challenging. How did you go through that, and what helped you?
Yeah, it was a really tough time, and yeah, I learned in 2012 was bittersweet for me. I was a team captain for the athletics team, and yeah, I really wanted to be at the games. I wanted to do well in my home games, but my body just let me down. I've been struggling with this injury for quite some time, um, and I delayed surgery to make sure I could compete at the games. Um, yeah, it just didn't work out. And I guess, yeah, and my approach to sport in life has always been like to to live in the moment and not really not have regrets about what you've done in the past and not worry too much about what's gonna happen in the future. So yeah, in that period I just try to put all my energy and focus into being at the games and doing the best I could do. Um, and yeah, it was quite hard to take. It was the first time in my career that I didn't win a medal in a championship, so it was quite a shock to do that. And yeah, to do it in the home Paralympics was not easy to take, but yeah, I had to dust myself down and get over it. And yeah, I guess, for a lot of athletes, I could have ended their career, and some athletes might have thought, well, I've already had a great career, I'm going to go and do something else. But I don't know, I just had that desire to try and come back. And luckily, I had a fantastic team of surgeons who did a great job and gave me a brand new hip. That was really great. Um, and they they helped me to have a second career, really, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Um, so I guess for me, it was just like starting again, like going back to the beginning of my career, and that's how I looked at it. Um, and yeah, I managed to retain that enthusiasm for training and did my rehab. And yeah, I managed to come back and compete in my sixth Paralympic Games and get back on the podium, which was unbelievable. So yeah, it's down to yeah my own personal desire, but again having a great team around me to support me and help me to get through that tough time.
And we hear that a lot from athletes that are compete at the highest level. Yes, they share that, like, yes, my team is very important, and we totally, I mean, it makes sense that support system is there, but in the end of the day, you are still the one putting in the hours, putting in the work on the field. So it takes that specific mindset of wanting to be the best and competing at that highest level. So it's really impressive to see that. Now, one aspect you mentioned earlier is the aspect of role models, and obviously you talk about overcoming adversity and being a role model, and we see that a lot with sports, and lots of kids are looking up for the Premier League soccer players and other athletes, but the role of Paralympians as role models, because there are so many more disabled people than you would normally think that are not competing in sport. What was a how who was a role model for you growing up, and how do you now define being a role model for others?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was very lucky that my sports club that I went to had a Paralympic athlete as a coach,
Oh wow.
and he was he was my very first real coach. So I had that real connection to him, and he was somebody that I looked up to a lot. So yeah, that's really why I try to be open and accessible. I try to connect to young athletes, and yeah, 'cause I think when it comes to role models, yeah, you need that. You need to be able to connect to people on a personal level. It's not really enough to see somebody on TV or see photographs or videos because yeah, it's hard to connect to that. But I think yeah, if you can get a personal connection, um, and yeah, see that these people are just like me and you know, they're just human beings who have a really big desire to get the most out of their body and mind every day. And yeah, if you can see how much enjoyment that can bring, you know, I think that's what can really inspire people to say that yeah, we're not superhuman, you know, we do the right things day in, day out. And that's it really. I think that's really important because there can be a bit of a disconnect between elite sport and participation. So it's important that we can bridge that gap and help people to find their own level that suits them. You know, not everyone wants to be a Paralympian. Not everyone wants to be um, an elite athlete. So it's about finding a way that they can find their own level where they get the enjoyment from sport. Um, and that's really important.
The one, and then this is gold. And one thing that just really stuck with me, what you just mentioned, is everyone needs to find their own level and their own goals in this area. And being a role model means doing the right thing on a day in, day out. So it's not just wanting to be a role model. It's just being a human and doing the right thing. So that's a really insightful and powerful message here. I do have a question that currently the Winter Paralympics are going on. As a summer Paralympian, how much do you follow the Winter Paralympics? Is that something you support, you follow along, or how's that as an athlete?
Yeah, well, I have almost respect for any sports person because I know the dedication, the commitment it takes to be elite in any sport. So I always had that respect for any sports person in any sport, you know, whether I have a personal interest or not. But yeah, I have been following the Paralympics and the Olympics, and it's always exciting to watch different sports that you don't get to see very often on TV. So I think it's important that yeah, you know, these athletes get the recognition and the coverage that they deserve, and yeah, I think that's one thing that's real. You know, one of the biggest things that the Olympics and Paralympics are about is, yeah, giving these, you know, the minority sports that exposure, you know, that they don't always get, and that's really, really important. So, yeah, I am taking a keen interest.
That's interesting, and it makes sense to support others as well. Now, we've seen, obviously, right now with the war in the Ukraine, we've seen athletes from Russia being banned, um, and we've also seen Paralympians being banned, which obviously competing for a country that's at war is something that, yes, it totally makes sense that you can't compete for this country. But there's also some controversy around preventing Paralympians because they are and represent oftentimes the most vulnerable part of a country. And we just talked about role models and the need for role models in, well, any country, so to speak. And now not not allowing Russian Paralympians to compete. Um, what is your perspective? And feel free to move on from this, as it's a very political and loaded conversation. But I needed to ask.
Yeah, you can't ignore what's going on in the world. It's scary and it's beyond anybody's control really. But yeah, I think it's impossible to completely disconnect politics from sport. People talk about trying to do it, but yeah, in today's society where sport has such a big influence on social perspectives, on culture, it's really hard to do that, especially when you have so many sports people becoming ambassadors for social equality and diversity. So I think, yeah, it's really important to recognize the power of sport to do good in the world. I think you've seen that with the London 2012 Paralympics, what an impact that had on people's attitudes towards disability. So yeah, I think it's one of those situations where there's no right or wrong, no right or wrong answer. Yes, banning a country, yeah, you can see why you would do it, but in reality, how many of those athletes support what's happening in their country or have any kind of influence on what's happening? So it's it's one of those situations that is so complicated that nobody can say one way or the other. But yeah, I guess yeah, I kind of feel sorry for some of the athletes who worked really hard to get this opportunity, and then by no fault of their own, it gets taken away. That must be really, really difficult for them. So yeah, I think yeah, yeah, we've got to keep that in the back, and we've got to keep that in our minds as well.
Yeah, I agree, and hopefully the world will go back to a somewhat more normal state now after COVID, which I'm sure the COVID lockdown pandemic has impacted a lot of Paralympic trainings as well. Now we have something like this, and um, as we coming, well, hopefully coming out of the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic, what is I'm sure there are many different ways of supporting Paralympians and things that need change at the systemic level. But if you boil it down to the most important aspect that the Paralympic athletes or people of disability need in order to access sport, what is the one thing that we need at a major systemic level as a change?
Um, the Probably the biggest thing is access. Access to facilities, access to equipment, access to coaches, access to clubs, and even today it can be really hard for a disabled person to just start taking part in sport. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think that, but it's still, yeah, it's not always straightforward. You a lot of disabled people have to travel a long way to get access to facilities and equipment, and it can be very expensive and finding a coach that that is open and has the skills and knowledge to coach a Paralympic sport again is not easy. So it's about improving the facilities and then yeah training people to be able to to develop and coach disability sport and that's the biggest thing because yeah I think a lot of disabled people would like to do sport, would like to be active, but it's like you've got to have you need like a big desire to want to do it because it's not easy. So if we really want to get that mass participation, we're gonna make it easier. We're gonna make it more accessible. That's how you get those big numbers, and yeah, it's not just disability, it's able bodies, We want to help people to be active and be healthy. Yeah, we're gonna make it accessible.
And that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's probably we're still very far away from that accessibility, but I think every step, hopefully, we can all contribute a little bit to creating awareness and providing more access. Now, we've taken a very serious route with this interview. I want to finish on a somewhat lighter note. And where's the goofy side of Stephen Miller?
The goofy side. Uh, I don't know, the goofy side. Um, I don't know. Well, yeah, I've always tried to have fun and try to not take myself too seriously. So I do, I do like to, to joke around. I like to try different things. Um, I'm trying, I don't know, that's a hard question. Where's the goofy side? Um, God, that is a really tough question. Um, I don't know.
That's absolutely fair. But when you said earlier on, you're trying to live every day as you're looking at creating happiness for yourself. I think that is a lot of people are looking at that as in this is a really good takeaway and looking at creating happiness on a daily basis, um, and not taking yourself too serious. I think that's exciting to hear. Um, as you mentioned earlier, being a role model and trying to lead people and show people what life can be about. So that's and to me the goofiness comes out in little nuggets and doesn't have to be this one crazy thing, but just that wanting to live life to the fullest and not taking yourself too serious.
Yeah, I think that's it, really. I think, every day, I get up and just try and live the best day I can live and try and, have a good balance in life, not get too obsessed about one thing, So, yes, I love to train, I love to compete, but I have a lot of other things in my life that I get as much enjoyment from. So I think that's really important as well to have that balance in your life. I love to read, I love to write, I love to play games, I love to watch TV. You know, I think it's important that we can build this experience for ourselves. It's like, life's too short to just do one thing. You gotta try and experience everything that life can throw at you. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, that's very exciting and really good advice. Now, one of be cognizant of your time. These are really amazing insights, and I want to thank you for your time. I also want to make sure to mention your experience store on the SPRTER app. Again, for anyone interested in connecting with Stephen, head over to the SPRTER app, check out his experience store there, where he's offering amazing experiences with him, personal Zoom call, video messages, and so on. Also, make sure to follow him on all of the socials, Hail Fabio1 on Instagram, and check out his charity, Smile Through Sport, which does amazing support to those who need more access, and those people with disabilities, and where sport can really make a difference. So make sure to check him out there, follow along on all of the socials on the SPRTER app, and we're looking to continue supporting, and hopefully do a little bit of our part on raising awareness and on that accessibility. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephen. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's really cool.
Thank you. Have an awesome day.